Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Ski Instructor Podcast. My name's Dave Burrows. I'm the director and owner of SnowPros Ski School based here in Switzerland. I wanted to start before we get going with this week's podcast, and I wanted to thank everybody for all the positive comments and the emails and the comments that I've received through Podbean and iTunes. For this podcast. It's really it's great to know that there's so many people out there listening. I'm not going to list everybody who's written into me, but you know who you are, and thank you for getting in touch. I also saw I now have a thread dedicated to myself on snowheads, which was super interesting to see the feedback that those guys have got. And what it made me realize is that I didn't actually give at any point an explanation of why I'm doing this or what I'm doing it for. So I thought I'd just explain that before we get going today. About a couple of years ago, I finished off my brevet fédéral in Switzerland. So my journey was I started all my formation within the British Association of Snow Sports Instructors, but very soon I realised that their framework and their pathway is set up and geared towards France, and my ambition was never really to work in France that much. And actually, my whole life is based in Switzerland. So I flipped over into the Swiss snow sports system and eventually managed to gain my brevet fédéral with them. And what happened, I think this happens to a lot of people who kind of complete their various national systems, is that I popped out of the end of that. And then for a little while, I was sort of a bit in the wilderness, because you get used to sort of taking exams and doing this sort of continuous learning process. But in fact, then sort of dropped into this void. So I was looking around for things to do, be it training courses or other interesting stuff to learn, and I couldn't really find anything that was interesting to me. And so this podcast is actually part of that, which I essentially just started out doing myself. So what I'm doing is I'm looking around for interesting ski instructors, ski school directors, people that I'd like to speak to, actively seeking them out and speaking to them. And at the same time, I thought, well, wouldn't it be good, instead of just having these conversations, why don't I share that with the wider community so that everybody can hear what these guys and girls have got to say. So that's how the podcast came about. For me, there's no material goal or gain, or I'm not looking this, for fame or for sponsorship or anything like that. I'm literally doing it as a personal journey and just something that's interesting to me, and I'm just putting it out there, and if people are interested in it, they're interested in it. And as I sit here now, we've had over 4,000 downloads over the six episodes, and there's plenty more. I've got a big list of interesting people to interview. In terms of the length of the podcast, I don't really care. It's an open format conversation, so it goes where it goes. A lot of these end up being about 1 hour 30, and there are other podcasts out there that I've heard that are similar. Well, not similar, but skiing-based content. But they try to keep it all within the hour. But that really doesn't matter to me. The conversation takes as long as the conversation takes to get through the points that I kind of wanted to talk to those people about. So on we go then. So episode 7, I interviewed Tom Gellie. Tom Gellie is based in Sydney, Australia, and Tom Gellie is also the owner of a business called Functional Body. Now, Tom has skied for Australia. He's been in the demo team for Telemark and skiing. And he also has plenty of content out there on social media. You would have seen him ski, no doubt, and he's he's an amazing skier, that's for sure. This interview was done on Skype, and the usual kind of setup where I'm trying to record it off of Skype. So the sound quality in some places is not amazing, but hopefully that's enough to that you can all hear. In this first half, we talked at length about his journey, his skiing in Australia, his journey to where he is now, skiing in Australia and New Zealand, and his work at Functional Body, and we also touch on equipment. So without further ado, we'll get going, and I'll see you at the midpoint break. Thank you. So, Tom Gellie, welcome to the Ski Instructor Podcast. You're joining us all the way from Sydney in Australia.
That's right. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Oh, mate, it's great. I've been really following your stuff that you've been doing with your business, Functional Body. Is that right?
That's right.
And I think it's hugely interesting. The thing that really sparked me to get in touch with you, and I've been meaning to for a while, and obviously you run your own podcast, Global Skiing, which has got some amazing interviews on it. But the thing that prompted me to get in touch with you this time was actually the discussion about Q angle and you know that sort of the A-framing problem that gets created by that, which caused actually there's a huge amount of comments underneath that particular post that you made on Facebook. So
it did, yeah.
Yeah. But let's take it back a little bit before we jump right into all the biomechanic stuff. Let's talk about your own personal skiing, because you skied an extremely high level. And you're also, I think you're doing some clinics and stuff this winter in New Zealand with rookies, is that right?
That's right, yes, yeah. So I've got, where do you want me to start?
Up to you, mate. You just carry on. You know how these things work.
Yeah.
Tell me about your skiing. From how did you grow up skiing? Were you racing as a young age, or you just did you come to it late? What's the deal?
So, no, I actually only started Alpine skiing when I was 22 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I was telemarking a bit before then, snowboarding a couple of years before then, but yeah, not until I went to uni did I really start telemark skiing, because I grew up cross-country skiing.
Oh, wow.
My family, my dad in particular, is very much into the outdoors, and so every year we'd go to the snow in Australia, and we'd spend a couple of weeks, sort of in Jindabyne, which is a town there, and we'd go up for the day to different places, and sort of go, and it was backcountry cross-country skiing, so used to wear really dorky outfits, like if you can imagine, like me as a 9-year-old walking around in long johns and a raincoat and a balaclava, with my brother in the middle of like the Aussie bush snow, trying to build jumps, being very jealous of all our friends who had lift tickets, and kind of hating my parents because they thought it was too expensive, and it was better for us to be in the outdoors. So I look back now and I'm very grateful, because I think it actually taught me natural balance a lot better, because I was in leather boots that were often too big, on skinny skis that were held just down by 3 pins at the front, so free heel in really very variable Aussie snow we get, trying to do jumps, because my brother and I were right into that sort of stuff, but my dad would be like, no, we're going to go climb this mountain and go touring out here and eat our scroggin, and so that's how I grew up. And when I could afford a lift ticket, I went and I snowboarded, because it was a much cooler thing to do, and really sort of fell in love with it, and finished school and went and became a lifty at Perisher for one season, and then went to university in a place called Albury Wodonga to study environmental science and outdoor recreation, and there that's really close to resorts, Falls Creek and Mount Hotham, and so me and my housemate at the time would go up, and that's when I got back into telemark skiing, because I saw a video, and cross-country or the backcountry telemark skiing wasn't dorky anymore. People were throwing like double backflips and like cork sevens and stuff. I was like, oh, cool. Like I used to be good at that. It's not so awkward anymore. I'll do it again. So I bought some Black Diamond skis and G3 boots and got into telly and did my instructor's level really early on, and then ended up kind of going up through the levels and becoming an APSI, Australian telemark trainer.
Oh wow!
And then got selected for the Aussie Interski team as the Telemark representative for the 2011 St. Anton Interski.
Yeah.
And so went there as the only telemarker for the Aussie team, but ended up being in all the demos part of the time with my heels down. If I was like one of the runs, synchro runs we did was sort of this short-term formation, and so I was on tele skis doing Alpine short turns. But that was a huge turning point actually, because I thought what I wanted to be was a world-class Telemark technical instructor skier, do everything. So I was, able to throw backflips, front flips, Lincoln loops, like 360s, go in the park and ski bumps and race. And so, felt pretty good. And going to Interski, I thought I would see all these people that were like, that would inspire me and be way better. But it was actually, and no offense to anyone there, but it was actually a bit disappointing, but really good, because I saw these Alpine skiers and they were the ones that really inspired me, like JF Bulliot and Sebastian Michel and Russ Wood and the Swiss team and the Japanese team, the Korean team, like all these amazing skiers. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do, because there's a lot more knowledge in that world on technique, and I was still kind of thinking, if I do that, then I can always bring it back into telly and help Telemark get better. So I was still sort of thinking telly was a thing that I wanted to really do. But then my goal became to get on the Alpine team, and it just so happened I then switched to Thredbo Ski Resort, because I was at a really small resort called Charlotte Pass.
All right.
And at Thredbo was Paul Lorenz and Riley McGlashan, so they were also on the demo team, St. Anton team with me. Yeah. And so I'd become really good friends. And so we would go skiing all the time, morning sessions, afternoon sessions, days off. The three of us were always skiing around, and I would pick their brains and we're chatting all the time, and it's huge. Like I can't thank those guys enough for the influence and knowledge I've gained from skiing with them, and some other people that really supported me at Thredbo, like Matt Smith, the training manager. Yeah. So anyway, that got me to the level where I was selected for the Aussie demo team that went to Argentina in Ushuaia. And
did you go to that? Did you go to that as ski and Telemark, Alpine and Telemark?
No, just ski. So basically, once I decided I'm going to be on the Alpine team, that was it. I think I telemarked maybe 3 times since then. Okay. So it was like a full just no, that's it. Which is how I think I'm a bit like that. It's kind of a bit all or nothing. Yeah. Made that team. The lead up to Interski 2015 was great, because I was motivated to go there and really, like, I think we had a really strong team with Paul, Riley, some of the other guys, Ant Hill and Richard Jamison, and there's some really good skiers there, and it was so it was really cool to go and show like the world that like APSI can ski. We can ski pretty well, given we come from a dry, hot country, with not the best snow and not many days of snow compared to the rest of the world.
No, and that's to your credit, I think, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at some of these guys that you've mentioned, Paul and Riley and stuff like that, and I have to say, these guys are really, I think obsessed is probably the right word. They're really, really. Definitely. Looking in so much detail about what makes skiing work and why, and the minutiae of their own technique, which is to their credit, it's absolutely fantastic, and it's got them to where they are now. So that's cool.
And I think I definitely, I was obsessed with telemark skiing and everything, and these guys sort of definitely helped me become obsessed with alpine skiing, watching videos of Richie Berger and all the Japanese guys. And I think it really helped, because I think a lot of people become like a full cert instructor then almost kind of like kick the gear back, like put it in cruise control, and just like that's where they're at. But it was really after then that I sort of took off and was like, right, now I can ski like a Japanese person, and I don't give a shit, because I don't, like, it's my skiing now. I'm not trying to pass any other test or whatever. I just want to see what's fun. And unless you're racing, like, so your specific goal is to be the fastest down the hill, or you're a park person and your specific goal is to throw tricks and whatever. Yeah. Skiing, like technical skiing, just becomes about being able to master all types of conditions, turns, terrain, and kind of just play with the terrain and forces. So why wouldn't you try and emulate what someone's doing and be able to do that and find what's kind of hidden behind that's going to be something useful? Because I don't think, like, if you can ski like every single good skier out there who's a bit different, you are definitely going to be the most versatile skier out there. Whereas if you just think you've got it because, I don't know, whoever country you represent, you think their system is the best way, and this is why, and everyone else doesn't know what they're doing because they do it differently. I think that's very closed-minded, and you're always going to miss out, because often I've found where the biggest breakthroughs you have are in things you think that are wrong, or that you might sort of have a strong disagreement with, and so you never ever explore it or see what's there. I mean, have you had that experience?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. You get kind of closed in your thinking, but I mean, for me, my journey was slightly different. So I had a lot of my early formation was done within the British system, and they have a certain way of doing things, and it produces a certain look, I think, amongst the skiers that you see, and don't get me wrong, I think it's really, really good, but then for me, my life went off in a different direction, and it made much more sense to be Swiss in everything that I do. I live here, my wife's Swiss, my kids Swiss, I live here, I'm not planning to go back to the UK at any point, so I decided that my route was to go within the Swiss snow sports system, and I learned a huge amount about skiing, just transitioning from one to the other. So, okay, well, there's a completely different way. These guys are skiing much more fluidly. They're much freer in their body than the kind of the way that the British would have you believe that it is good to ski.
Yes.
And for me, that really, really opened my eyes up. But in addition, I think what's got to come from within you, and it sounds like it's the same with you and a few of your crowd, is that you've got to have that general interest in skiing. So,
yes.
Like you've got it, your Facebook feed or whatever has got to be full of, mine is just full of skiing. There's nothing, and the odd bit and pieces that comes from the other side. And I'm looking at this stuff going, oh, wow, that's different. That's different over there. That's different over there. Like, I don't particularly agree. I have a bit of a personal hang up about, the sort of Japanese, Korean style of skiing. Because, for me, it just doesn't work aesthetically. But that's not to say it's wrong. It's just different. And, I can look at that style of skiing and see it and look at it and go, well, I see what they're doing. I understand why they're doing it. But it's just not for me. And that's cool. Yeah. There's more than one way to skin a cat. And if that works in their particular terrain and environments, then that's all cool. But you have to look at these things to understand it. And to tell you what, when you go out on the hill and you clients love to know all of this sort of stuff. One thing that I do quite often is when we're talking about pole planting, when you're introducing pole planting, you can show clients or students or whatever, like all of the different pole planting styles from about 10 or 12 different nations. And say, these guys do it like this, the Italians do it like this, Swiss do it like this, if you're Japanese, you're holding your hands here, and that kind of stuff is useful, right? It's useful to know.
Yeah.
And
yes.
so I don't think you can just go down this road of saying, oh, well, our guys are the best. You know, this is it. Especially when you look at the latest Interski videos, right? You know, the Canadian guy, you must have seen the same stuff I've done. The Canadian guys do that comparison video. And I have to say, the large majority of nations, apart from those guys from Korea and Japan, and maybe I think Paul Lorenz was one of the video, but he's got quite a unique style within the Australian
APSI
guys anyway, is that actually everyone's kind of looking the same these days.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Except maybe the Swiss guys, but even you know,
I was actually going to one thing today. I was like, I want to do a video with commentary where I compare them all and just talk, like, not like, oh, these guys are doing it right, these guys are doing it wrong, but just look at some things that are measurable, like what the ski's doing.
Yeah, but there's not that much difference between the big nations.
I would differ though. I think there is a bit of difference because they're all on pretty much the same radius and length ski. So if they're all kind of looking similar, but if you watch, like, if it was completely groomed nicely, you would see not the same arcs down the hill. Like, for instance, the guy Jacob Skov from Denmark, like he holds on to the turn for a lot longer than, say, Luke Neron and Takao Maruyama. Like, both Luke and Takao are not trying to continue arcing the ski that much after the fall line. They get a bit of deflection and then start to take it away, whereas a lot of the other guys are still hanging on for longer, even though they look sort of like in similar positions. There's definitely a difference in how that ski is kind of working against the snow. But yeah, I thought exactly the same thing as you. A lot of the movements are very similar, but I would say timing of sort of turn completion, transitions, and stuff is quite. There's a lot of different timing, which is really the only thing you could do if they're all got similar edge angles. And the same ski. That's really the only thing that's going to be able to change that arc down the hill. So so I was going to do something looking at that, trying to explain, and then look up and, you know, like, oh, we'll see, and that's because their tips here and their masses here, and I think it'd be an interesting thing to do anyway.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think there is an element, I'm sure Jazz Lamb said this in one of the early podcasts that we did, is that, you know, he expected to see a lot of convergence. You know, he wasn't expecting a lot of this. A lot of huge, you know, marked differences in national styles anymore, because there seems to be kind of everyone's kind of come back in the same direction. But there is a certain, I don't know, I still go back to this, there's a certain freedom that comes in the Swiss skiing. I don't know what it is that creates it. They have a big inclination movement until the angulation movement right at the end, but they certainly seem a lot freer on their skis than some of the other nations. No, I think there's some of my favourite kind of style. If you look at it in terms of style, like, and their turns, like, they're really, like, it would have been cool to sort of ask them to like maybe stick to a corridor, because I think you would have seen a next level again. It really looked like they were just in second gear. Like, oh, we got to do this video? Okay, fine. They look very, very relaxed, and for sure. There is a video which I encourage everyone to watch, which is a test which is part of the instructor level degré 2 in the Swiss system, which is called the couloir test, where they set a corridor of varying widths down a red piste or whatever. So you have like a tight corridor, and then it goes wider, and then it goes sort of narrow again, and then either narrow again or wide again. And there's a video of Damien Franson doing that. test showing you what the level looks like. It'll be out there on Facebook or YouTube somewhere, but it's the most extraordinary skiing I think I've ever seen, for sure. And Damien's ex-World Cup guy, so he's going to be able to rip it for sure. But the test itself is amazing, because having done it, it's like it really tests your ability to manage pressure. Because if you're changing, a carved radius turn, so let's say you're doing shorts and you're going into longs and then back into a short, when you come off the end of that last long and you have to kind of rip it back into a short turn within a corridor of brushes, it's very, very easy to get spat out or end up on the wrong ski or whatever as you go into that first short turn. And it's a real it's one of the most interesting kind of technical tests that I've ever had to do. When you go on the British stuff, you're doing the same old stuff. It's like long turn, short turn, bumps, whatever. But the Swiss way is very odd. They have a sort of 14 consecutive days of tests. Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And I guess their theory is that if you can put all of these skills together, if you can do all of these tests, it makes for quite a well-rounded skier who's able to kind of really dance on their skis.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. What I'm gonna do now, in fact, I'll tell you what. Let's just finish off this locational thing. So you're off to New Zealand this winter?
Yes. So I'm actually going to go to Thredbo for a couple of weekends just with my wife.
Okay.
Skiing for fun.
Wow.
And then we've got 10 days there as a family, sort of July, August, and I'm going to be doing a bit of training and a sort of a couple, one or two presentations for the ski school at Thredbo.
Okay.
And then 2 weeks in Treble Cone with the Rookie Academy at the sort of end of August.
Yeah.
And then hopefully another little
general coaching or like a clinic or something like that, or.
So I get put on what are called the advanced camps for Rookie Academy, and so that's not like training for your CSI level 3 or BASI 2 or whatever. It's people who have all sorts of different quals, and it's just all ski technique improvement.
Yeah.
So I don't have to like show them any teaching progressions or anything. I mean, hopefully they pick up stuff from that, but it's all about improving their technical understanding in skiing. Yeah. From my point of view, and that's coming as Tom from sort of Functional Body, who views things maybe, this has just got my spin on it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And I've loved it. Like, it's been such an awesome platform.
Yeah.
Because I'm not constrained within this is the course content I have to present.
Yes.
This is kind of my view on it, and if you like it, great. If you don't like it, that's fine too.
Yeah.
It's just see what you think about it, and it's been awesome because with the Rookie Academy, we all do a lot of we do training together every Wednesday and most weekends, and it's cool because we've got people from all the different countries there. Yeah. And so it's a real melting pot of different ideas and people who are obviously doing it a long time. So it's awesome. And there's like heated debates at time in the locker room, about boot setup or about like whatever it is. And then other times it's like, oh yeah, awesome. You're on the same page, and it's just such a cool.
It's almost like a mini Interski by the sounds of things.
Yeah. Except Interski sometimes gets in the way because there is that structure there, whereas this is just like, it's more like, friends get together. It's very much why I think I really enjoyed the early days in Thredbo with Paul and Riley, because we'd just all go off free skiing, talk skiing in the car on the way home, on the way up, watch videos together, argue, agree, disagree, and so it's just very much like that. So I really enjoy my time there. Plus it's beautiful. I mean, New Zealand is incredible. And Treble Cone has some awesome terrain. And the guys that run it, Garrett and Dean, are lovely guys. And
for sure. I know know Dean. I had conversations with him before.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, in that case, since you're going there with the sort of functional body hat on, let's talk about that. So, your transition away from kind of skiing full time and more into this. So your business functional body. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what kind of clients are coming through your door these days?
Yeah. So I would say, like, first of all, what functional body is. I guess it's my approach to getting people out of pain or increasing performance. Okay. So I wouldn't call it physiotherapy or massage or anything like that. Like I use movement, so exercises. I use hands-on techniques to like release or whatever, activate muscles or whatever you'd want to call it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, people are coming to me with pretty much 90% of the time pain. 10% of the time, like, want to improve some kind of movement that they haven't got pain with, but, you know, it's sports related. So those are the problems I have to solve. And, I get people from all walks of life, from kids. Like this week I had a 14-year-old, and then also like a 65-year-old.
Okay.
And yesterday I saw 2 skiers. This morning I saw 1 skier. So it's getting more like that. They all happen to have some pain though. Yes, and so depending, what I've really tried to do is, because I love skiing, is eventually take more of this sort of stuff into the skiing side, the skiing world, because I think there's a definite need for a bit more accurate and detailed knowledge about biomechanics, movements and stuff made on the skis, so people have some, you know, better knowledge and education about it.
Yeah.
Because I certainly didn't. If you ask me what's the difference between your hip and your pelvis, when I was a beginner level 4 instructor, like I'd just got my full cert, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell you.
No.
I would have said I'm pretty sure they're the same thing.
Yeah.
Or and so that's definitely different now. So it's partly been also a journey for me to selfishly learn more about how we move and how I move, because at the end of the day, I think most people a lot of people that end up being practitioners were in pain in the first place. I luckily wasn't that person, but I was intrigued and wanted to figure out better ways or easier ways, or figuring out how to teach ways to move better. And so learning more about the body and that sort of thing has definitely helped in that space.
I think skiing is, from that point of view, I mean, it's very get my thoughts in order here. So I was down at the chiropractor yesterday. I was rather stupid. I was moving what happens after every ski season for about the last 6 years is that I put my back out at some point in the off season. But you know, I don't think I'm the only one with that. But I actually managed to dodge it last year. But this year, I thought it, for some reason, last week it was a great idea to move a piano down the stairs on my own, and and you know, next thing you know, you can't walk. But I think so. You know, I'm in the chiropractor fairly regularly, but just to kind of get everything, you know, straight and in order.
Yep.
But I think that's all well and good in terms of dealing with a regular body, but what we're dealing with then when we add skiing into the mix is all sorts of weird stuff to do with boots and skis and bindings and ramp angles and, you know, cuff angles, whatever, you know, baseboard angles, whatever. All of that stuff then either serves to kind of aid us or to block us in our movement. And I can't tell you the number of times that I see it during the ski season where clients turn up with some boots that they've rented from, you know, some shop somewhere that doesn't know what they're doing. And you know, I know a lot of good hire shops for sure that do know what they're doing, but often, you know, people will just go to somewhere like Ocean Sport, which is, you know, like the local kind of big sort of supermarket thing here.
Yep.
And they turn up with equipment that is not allowing them to move their body in the way that allows them to ski. And that's a huge thing in the industry, I think.
Yes.
Because actually, when you can see that kind of stuff, Tom, when you see that you can know that when the client turns up for that lesson, there's literally not a great deal that you're going to be able to do for the next 3 hours if the equipment is blocking them.
Yes.
So what do you do, right?
Exactly.
What do you do?
Yeah, well, you gotta, like, I know it's not for everyone to be able to do, but in a pickle, you know, like you get out business cards or coins and you try and, you know, you wedge things in here and there. I mean, I definitely would not be advocating to do that if you don't really know what you're doing. No, but that's what I've ended up doing, and has helped in the learning process. But this can obviously come with dangers. You don't know what you're doing. But yeah, you're right. You can do your best, but really that person's equipment, needs changing.
The biggest one. Go on. Sorry. Go on.
I was just going to say, like, I mean, for instance, good athletes athletic people, even if they're a beginner skier, can work, like they can get around it and compensate a little bit, because there are lots of places you can joints in the body you can compensate for the equipment pushing you in a more difficult position. But yes, it certainly makes it for those people who are more on the edge of, say, alignment that is ideal for a ski boot. Those people on the edges either way are very much, they're the ones that maybe do skiing and end up getting injured or hate it because it's too difficult and never do it again.
No, for sure.
Or end up the chronic level 3 resitter.
Yeah. Or do you think that is equipment based? It often is,
I think. Well, you think those people often are given feedback to say you need to do this, you need to do this for years, and those people are trying to do that, and they get good coaching from people, and maybe they fluke a couple of turns because it's really nice forgiving snow, and so then this boot alignment issue or whatever is not getting in the way as much because of the snow's forgiving, and they're like, yes, I got it, and the trainer's like, yes, you got it, and then the exam day it's rock hard, and you know, critical edge angle is not right, and then they're skidding and rotating and whatever, and you did it again, you did it right the other day, but you didn't get it today. You know. So I mean, I think those people that are caught in a rut, I think you got to ask yourself, like, you need to start thinking more laterally, because
could it be my equipment setup? Yes.
It's
true. The one
because I mean, you think how many good skiers you know, like I'm talking like really good skiers, and you see them maybe at the gym or stretching, and they're horribly inflexible, like, you know, they're not that athletic. But yet they get on a pair of skis and they're fine, and you're like, that doesn't make sense. And other people, like, you know, incredible flexibility and whatever, yet they have this funky ski technique. And so there's this, you gotta like consider the whole kind of picture and really tick off and go, is this my problem? Is it kind of like a thing that's 80% of the problem, or is it like 5% of the problem? And go through a process of elimination, and you'll get more to what the cause of what's holding your skiing back is.
It's you know, I can imagine that if you were skiing, say, on the World Cup or something, I'm only imagining this because I'm never going to get anywhere near that, but I can imagine that if you're on equipment, let's say you've skied on a head or whatever for the last 5 years, you must be so fearful if there was an opportunity to change equipment, or you want to, you know, you're considering a change in equipment or something like that, because, you know, these things, when you go into, say, a different boot and it's a little bit different or whatever, or constructed differently, and those guys are on a different level to us, but, you know, there must be a huge fear factor. So, well, maybe I won't be able to ski on this other equipment. You know, and you can relate that
I would
down.
imagine. Yeah,
you can relate that down into like a lower level skier. So like for me, I've been skiing on head for as long as I know, right? But and I absolutely love that kind of head Raptor boot. It matches how my ankles move pretty well. I've got super bendy ankles, so I kind of, you know, that level of forward lean matches kind of how my body works, or it creates quite an upright upper body. But that's kind of just how I'm built. It's not the boot or anything that's doing that. But I went.
So you've never tried any other brands?
Well, I have. This is the point where I was coming to. So for part of some of this touring stuff that I had to do for the Swiss brevet, is that I ended up in this kind of, I can't even remember the brand of it, but like a fairly. A reasonable touring boot, but with a fairly upright cuff.
Yep.
And I could not ski in that boot to save my life. It's unbelievable because I wasn't able to do, my ankle wasn't able to do the movement that it normally does.
Yeah.
And so you're sort of constantly caught on your heels, and I see that so often with like beginner skiers who come. Or beginner or kind of average, early intermediate skiers who come and they've got these kind of rental boots that are kind of well stiff, the plastic's all hard from, being on the shelf for 4 years or 5 years or whatever. And, they just cannot get their body to move in the way that it's designed to move.
Yeah. But I think even like given your listeners are probably all more ski instructors and all ski instructors are going to be a bit selfish and want to know more about for them. I think just even talking about like people listening and wondering about their boot setup, I think like because I've skied in Head, Lang, Dalbello, Scarpa, and more recently Fisher, and so I've tried a sort of a wide variety of brands, and even within the brands, like I remember one year I was like, I really want to get, when I was with Dalbello, I really want to try the 3-piece boot. I don't know why it's escaping me now. The Krypton Pro. Yeah. Krypton Pro.
Cool looking boot.
Because I was like, I was like, oh, sweet. I want to try that because it's going to flex differently. But I didn't realize that the cuff alignment was completely different to the Scorpion. And I just went for a run at Thredbo and my knees were like totally knock-kneed. I couldn't ski and the snow was great. It was really good snow and I was like, I just wasted a whole entire like first run of the day excited for my boots. And I couldn't ski. So the same brand that I normally ski but different boot, and it was terrible. And then more recently these Fisher boots, which have been the best boots for me because of my bowed lower legs. The Fisher boots, you would call them bowed boots in a way, like the cuff is very bowed. And like from the moment I skied them, I was like, I can't believe I've spent like 10, 11 years like not skiing a boot like this. But I guess it is what it is. And until I think you go and try, you like there might even be a boot that's even better than the Head for you, but you don't know until you go and. It's cool to be able to go and test some stuff. It's a shame you can't just go and
test every
boots,
single. Right? That's the hardest thing. You can test any ski you want, but you can't test boots. That's really difficult.
Yeah, I know. And I can understand why, but it would be great if that was an option, especially at the high end, because like if you're just not an instructor or whatever and you're just skiing for 2 weeks a year and you really enjoy it when the conditions are good, and so if it's kind of icy, you go in for early lunch and hang out with your family, that boot setup is not as critical. Because this when the snow gets tricky and hard and you're an instructor and you have to go out there because you have a lesson or you love it and you ski no matter what, that's when it, I think, gets even more important. So it'd be cool if there was a high-end boot
testing shop. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Where
I think we just come up with a strong business idea which will net us millions.
I think a strong business idea that would very soon go down the plug hole because everyone would rent you boots and you'd make no money because then they go thanks and they'd go buy them online somewhere else.
Yeah, well,
get their pro deal and
I absolutely hear that. I hear the reason that I kind of love the head wraps because it works for me. I'm quite straight up and down in my legs. Like there's not much bowing. It's just kind of not how I'm built, but there is this kind of extreme ankle flex, and I'm sure that's actually a thing with a lot of skiers. I'm convinced of it. Is that I bet you a lot of skiers can get their, or high level skiers can get their knees well in front of their toes. I'm absolutely convinced of it. So for that boot and it's kind of the way that it flexes really works for me. I tried that Darbello, I think it was a DRS 130, and it was way too soft. Way too soft. It just wasn't going to work for me ever.
Yes.
Yeah. So much good stuff that came out of my chat with Tom. I really enjoyed that conversation about equipment, and also it was amazing to hear his kind of journey into skiing and the fact that he's a late starter, which again, like some of our other guests, it doesn't mean you didn't start at an early age. Doesn't mean that you're not going to get to a really good level in skiing. In this second half, we cover a number of other topics. So we talk about getting fat in the ski season, or certainly that's my case. I know some people lose weight across the ski season, but I certainly get heavier. We cover something called PDTR, and finally we touch on a subject to do with how having children impacts your teaching, which I thought was a really interesting conversation, something that I'm quite hung up on at the moment. So enjoy the second half, and I've got a couple of great interviews coming up. I'm off next week to go and see Phil Brown and Aosta, and I've lined up some cracking ones for the autumn as well. So enjoy the second half, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. A question for you, which may or may not be kind of functional body related, is when you skied full seasons in the past, does your body composition change during the season? The reason I asked is a slightly loaded question, but I'm kind of off season now. I've been off season for a month or so, and I've lost in that period. I'm now about 9 kilos lighter than I was in the season.
Yeah.
And a lot of it just seems to be a kind of process of, okay, you're not eating crappy food anymore, like you're not eating Rosti or whatever for lunch every day, but it seems like a lot of the muscle mass that was situated in kind of my thighs and kind of around my core has also kind of gone away. Is that something that you see with skiers?
Yes, definitely. And within myself, I know my jeans fit tighter around the legs, like end of ski season versus beginning. Yeah, for sure. So and muscle weighs a lot. So you will definitely see that fluctuate. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. You're a lot slighter than me. I've kind of seen the videos and stuff, but that does happen. Okay, so it's the body does change then over the course of the season.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah, getting kind of heavy. You'd probably hit a heavier point towards the end as your muscles kind of peak out. Yeah. And your endurance gets better, so you're able to do it for longer. Yes.
All right. Cool. Okay, so I want to go on to this other topic, which I found really, really interesting, and I find it interesting because a friend of my best mate back in England and his girlfriend do this thing, but for horses. This thing called I'm not going to call it PTSD because that's the wrong word.
PDTR.
PDTR. Tell me all about that and why you ended up in their clinic and what you were doing, because this is super interesting for me.
Well, it's short for proprioceptive deep tendon reflex.
Okay.
Yeah. So the idea is it's a technique that is sort of has derived itself a bit of it from applied kinesiology, which is a lot of muscle testing. So, testing people's muscles based on attachment points, fiber directions, and actions of that muscle on the body. So you can figure out if someone's gluteus maximus is working properly or if it's being compensated by another muscle and which muscle it is. So you can use muscle testing with applied kinesiology to figure that out. But an orthopedic surgeon named Dr. Jose Palomar from the United States, he was doing he was doing surgeries on people, say, with back pain, and so they had the bulging disc, and the suspicion was that the disc was pushing on the nerve root, and then that's why this person had pain.
Yeah.
And so going in and surgically cutting the disc away from the nerve and relieving that pressure should then theoretically put that person out of pain, which sometimes it would. But then other times people would come back and they would say, "Doctor, it's no better. I've still got the pain there." And so he was like, what if it's not that, the pressing on the disc pressing on the nerve that is the problem, what else could it be? Which led him into, there's lots of research out there already on the different receptors that we have in the body, receptors in our skin, muscle, bone, different tissue that pick up things like how much pressure is on that particular part, how much stretch that particular ligament is under, if there's nociceptive or pain stimulus coming through or a danger threat because what's touching you is sharp like a knife, whether there's a particular frequency of vibration, whether there's hot, cold, sounds, thoughts even, believe it or not, can trigger pain. So looking at all these different receptors, he started researching to find out how you could directly find out, say, if there's a weak right gluteus maximus, if the weakness is coming from a oversensitive pressure receptor. So that person, maybe the pain doesn't come along at all if they're out walking, running, skiing, playing basketball all day heavily, but then they sit on their ass for 5 minutes and bam, there's their hip pain. So it's like, okay, there you could say that it's a pressure receptor. So you could, with PDTR, go and test exactly that. And you could distinguish, you would find maybe the gluteus maximus was strong, and if you jolted it, it was strong. If you poked it with a pinprick, it was strong. If you stretched it, it was strong. You contracted, it was strong. But you touch it with a bit of pressure, and it goes weak as a baby. So you can, using PDTR methodology, you can find out that specific. So say someone, a physio would maybe usually go, you've got a tight glute, that's why you've got pain. Stretch it. Well, what if the stretching wasn't the problem? It's pressure. How are you going to change that if that's not the stimulus that's bothering the nervous system? You can go in and it's probably the most complex thing I've ever studied, because there are rules to it as well, which makes it even trickier. So do you know what a fractal is in just a general sense?
No.
Okay, so a fractal is like you could say a tree is sort of a fractal. Like there's the base of the trunk, and then you go up and it splits into two. Then that two splits into another two, and then splits off and off and off. And so say you see someone and the problem is in one of the branches of the tree, but really what it was caused from was something that happened all the way down at the base. If you go and treat the tree branch, you'll get rid of that. But then as long as the tree root or the base of the trunk gets disturbed again, it'll recreate the whole fractal of problems again.
Yeah.
And then you're back to square one. So PDTR can even help you find out, you could find that right glute pressure sensor problem, and you go, I'm just going to double check whether that's actually the top priority problem
like
in your body.
Like the base calls kind of thing.
Yes, is that the base of the tree, or is that just a branch that you're just seemingly noticing that's waving in your face? So then you can test that, and often it's not. You go along and it's got ways you can test, and it's like, no, actually that's come from like a jolt impact receptor on your sacrum and then the person's like, oh yeah, you know what, like 10 years ago I fell on my tailbone ice skating really bad, like I couldn't walk probably for 2 weeks, and then it just kind of resolved itself and I never did anything about it. But then, like 5 years later I've suddenly got this mysterious right hip pain that won't go away no matter what I do. And so PDTR is quite helpful. I mean, it's really complex. Every case is really complex, but it can definitely help you get closer to that root cause. And the changes, it's amazing. Like if it's, because I should clarify, it's only good at helping if the problem is analogy wise a software problem as opposed to a hardware problem. So what I mean by that is a hardware problem would be you have a broken leg. No amount of PDTR will fix that because you have a broken leg. But if you have a broken leg 10 years ago and the bone's all healed, but you have pain receptors around it that are still like way too high frequency and kind of setting off when they shouldn't, then that's a software issue, and you can test for that and you can treat it. And if it's the cause, it will go literally in like the click of a finger or within like a minute. It's really incredible, and it's weird because you'll do a treatment on someone and you go, okay, just get up and see how that feels, and they look at you like, but you just hit my patella tendon and like push my bum and then stretch my IT band, like you think that's fixed? And they get up and they bend their knees. What? It's like pain's gone. That's crazy. So it is crazy, but when you start understanding, it's quite a lead. Yeah, when you start understanding neurology and sensations and where and why you get given these pain signals or receptor kind of signals, it actually makes total sense. Yeah, it's interesting because I think also the body is extremely good at doing. I'm sure you mentioned it earlier about doing workarounds, right? So if you've got, like I've got this kind of pain in my lower back, and kind of then what happens is the body kind of works out ways to move and to not set off those receptors. And then it carries those forward. So by the time I arrive at the next ski season, I'll have certain movements that I cannot go to, or my body, it's not that I cannot go to. Let's say I recover and this problem goes away, but my body will not allow me to go through certain spaces because it's still remembering it's still remembering the old stuff. And it's like, oh no, you cannot go through that zone. Like, that's where it hurts. Yeah, exactly. So you kind of make adapting movements. Yeah, and so there's your fractal. So you will have now, after this piano incident, developed some strategies off of that base problem that help you get around it, and then you've got this tree of the piano problem. And you might feel some then symptoms in a few months' time related to the tree branches, these strategies, and you might treat them but almost forget because you think the back is okay again. But you just want to always really tick off, go through a thorough process of checking everything. I see. I might have to go down this route. I think it's super interesting. All right, look, I know you're pressed for time. In this last kind of couple of minutes that I've got, I do want to sort of jump one more subject, if that's all right with you. So you've recently become a new father, fairly recently, 18 months ago or something like that. Congratulations. Thank you. That kind of stuff will change your life. And definitely. How has it changed your life, and has it changed your life in relation to your own skiing? That's a good question. Has it changed in relation to my own skiing? Yes, it hasn't allowed me to do as much as I'd like lately.
Well, yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. But I know it's all a trade-off, because it's definitely, Archie has been the most wonderful thing, and I can see down the line all these great ski days with him, hopefully anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, time spent with him doing things, showing him things that I love.
Yeah.
But yes, I think it's there's been a couple of things in work life. I think I have a lot more empathy for parents.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had the most kind of like problems with my body since Archie's been here, because of lack of sleep, because of awkward, like constantly being asked to pick him up out of a cot, which is awkward at like midnight, and then again at 1 a.m. and then again at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And you'd forget all the good habits of movement, and then you go, why is my back sore?
Yeah.
So it's definitely taught me some empathy and understanding of other parents, and being more mindful of what they've gone through.
Yeah.
But also that you need to be really careful and look after your own body because of that. So yeah, and then of course, I think someone else said to me the other day, like, I think being a parent is the most selfless thing you can ever do. So, which I mean, to not be, you get invited to go over to Europe or Canada or America to run some, I get asked to do some ski clinics and camps and stuff, and sorry, I can't go because of my family, and I value staying with my family more. But of course, that's kind of hard to
it's hard
see those opportunities be passed up.
Yeah, when you've got professional ambitions, it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is.
I'm kind of developing a sort of theory in my mind. I don't know whether it goes anywhere or not, but it's something that I've noticed for sure. So I work with kind of kids all year round. So I'm a football coach in the summer and ski coach in the winter. And what I've noticed is that the level of empathy that I've had with children post kids is much higher, be that on the mountain or be it whatever. I'm much more forgiving of if they make errors or mistakes or whatever, and I'm much more concerned for their well-being, which I didn't have before. And I don't think you can ever really know that if you don't have children. And I'm not This is not to put that out there and say you guys with no kids, you don't know anything. No, that's not true.
Because that was us before kids.
Yeah, that's right. There's just another level of care that kind of jumps in the way. I wouldn't say jumps in the way, but it's in between you and the teaching. So let's say you've got a group of kids, or you've got a kid or something in there you're teaching. Now, as opposed to before kids, I'm definitely much more, my number one priority, as opposed to kind of trying to get my point across and teaching, is definitely something much more empathetic. It's to do with their care and their well-being, which wasn't there before.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I didn't know it.
Yes.
It's really interesting.
Because of course, back then it was probably more like, I got to make sure this person gets better at skiing.
Yeah, I'm being paid to do that. Because that's what their
parents paid for it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think too, it's really helped see how a human goes through the process of learning something.
Oh yeah.
And that like, it's amazing watching Archie at the moment. Like he's almost now able to walk up and down like a set of stairs without help, and just seeing him, like the other day, that's all he wanted to do. I started to go up and down the stairs, because he can see, he's like, oh, I've just gotten better at this, and that's all he wants to do is just practice that and test it over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's such a good reminder of, oh, right, like once you've got that, like in skiing, you just go and practice that one thing over and over and over again, and then you get a bit bored, and then just leave it.
Yeah,
like you don't have to, move on, do something else fun, and then come back to it and be obsessed with it again. Yeah, and then leave it. Yeah, and then he doesn't. There's so much, there's so much observant. He's being observant, and then testing for himself. Whether how to do it. Not totally relying on me. A bit of help from mum and dad, but yeah. So it's been really interesting watching a human develop and learn and grow and practice something, leave it, and then you come back next week and they've nailed it because they've just been constantly practicing it in the background. It's been really cool.
I wonder, and the other
that's been good.
Yeah, the other thing that you touched on, which I just then earlier, which I thought was interesting, is this kind of concept of how it looks like when you drop your kid off with somebody now, like understanding what it is to be a parent. And I think back to kind of my pre-kid days and kind of, every now and then I'd turn up to a lesson or something a bit hungover and I'm like, and now I think back to those days, I think, I wonder what those parents must have thought. And they're handing their kids over to me. I don't drink anymore. I've not done for like 3.5 years, so that kind of that has gone. But like, I wonder, it's. I have regret for that, certainly, because now I'm really conscious about who I'm handing my kid over to, and if there's a day in the future, I'm handing my kid over to like a ski instructor for whatever reasons, for turning up, in a compromised state, that's going to be a real issue for me. It's really, strange. This kind of complete shift in perspective.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think there's a lot of kudos to like just kids in that, they're pretty smart often at looking after themselves. Luckily, luckily they don't have to often completely rely on instructors, new instructors, because God help them if that was the case. But yeah, I think good, like ski schools are really good management at keeping an eye on that. And I think if they really saw that problem come up, I know at Threadbow people have just been told to pull their head in or just taken off work, and that's good. I think it's been great. Lots of lessons in having a kid. Loved it. Can't wait. Hopefully I'm going to put him on some little plastic skis at the end of July and see, so they'll be like 21 months. See what he, just to like, so he feels sliding around, and then hopefully we can do it again in Canada in January. I tried those little plastic skis, and the one time I managed to persuade her to put them on, they fell off. And so I was just like, I'd finally managed to say, I'm going to try it. And so it didn't work out so well? Not really, no. It was... okay. I shouldn't hold my breath then. Well, no, because I'm trying a bit early, she was only just 2. And actually I wouldn't say it's a bit naughty, depends who you ask, but we were just pootling around with her in a backpack, which is kind of not brilliant, but it was enough to get her to have the sensation, and she loved the sensation of being in the turn, and that was interesting, like that kind of swooping feeling. So that was really cool. But this year, like, she can be way too heavy for that. Like, she's 15 kilos or something. So there's no way. Actually, I must say that's brought up something that I've been thinking about. I'm really interested to see, given my background in body stuff and whatever, to see what Archie grows up to be like, because I'll take him on my skateboard and kind of like give him that sensation of like swooping through turns, and he's already pretty good at riding a little 3-wheeled scooter now on his own, which is cool. So I'm really interested to see how much nature versus nurture, how much that actually has an influence. I spent a lot of my formative years riding like bikes, mounted bikes, whatever, and that I'm sure has something to do with the ability to kind of inclinate and angulate, you know what I mean? Like there's a parallel there. You're familiar with that sensation of going over, over in transition. But so I don't, like I say, I don't know whether though it's, there is a genetic component to being comfortable with sliding along or not.
I think that's going to be a quite an interesting thing, actually, ongoing.
Yeah, I'm really keen to see what comes of that in the future.
Yeah, the other one I think is going to be a struggle in our family is, like, you know, she's stubborn as hell, so she's only going to learn on her own terms. So I'm just like, well, you want to learn. I might end up having to get one of my colleagues to do it or something, because it's
Yeah, well, Jenny's asked if she can be the one that teaches him first off, and I'm like, of course, because she's like, well, once he gets better, you know, of course he's not going to want to ski.
No, I understand.
She's like, he won't ski with me after that, so can I teach him? I was like, of course you can.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, look, I know you're pressed for time, so thank you. What I'll probably do, if you want to give yourself a little plug for your business, if you want, I give that opportunity to everyone. So where can people find you if they need you?
Yeah, great. Well, I put a lot of stuff on my Instagram account, which is just one word, Tom Gellie, Gellie. And then my Facebook page, Functional Body. So there's a lot of good stuff on there. And if people go back through the history on videos and pictures, I mean, there's heaps of stuff in there, like on, you know, little tips and stuff for what you can do for your body. And then on my website, www.functionalbody.com.au, started putting together like a sort of a subscription and rental piece for it's more for ski instructors or high-end skiers on different topics like angulation, rotational balance, refined edging, pressure control, and I'm just adding when I get time, like the next one's going to be on kind of the topic of fore and aft balance, and I really try and cover topics in there that are maybe ones you wouldn't find if you've even been through all the levels of your instructor certification, or maybe you know, like clarification of some things that I know myself was a bit confused about early on, because it's not, you know, you might think, like, someone asks you what is angulation and you spit out some sentence, and then, you know, so do you really understand why you use it, and why is this person not doing it here but they're not falling over, and so really getting down to understanding how it's done, why it's done. So I'm really like happy with those videos. I think they're a really good resource for instructors. And then YouTube, I've got a YouTube channel called with the name tgellie, and lots of free videos on there as well, some skiing ones, some body stuff. And then the podcast, Global Skiing, which you mentioned, and I'm glad you really enjoy that. No, I've really enjoyed, as you probably why you've ended up doing this one. And I think you've filled a good niche in, you know, I know a lot of people from Canada, North America, Australia, New Zealand, but you know people in Europe and have connections there, so you're kind of filling in what people want to hear from those guys. But I highly recommend checking that out. I've got a couple of people I want to interview on that show coming up. One guy is an engineer, biomechanics guy, and another one has just escaped the top of my head. But there's a couple more good shows coming up, and then one on my YouTube channel with Stuart McGill, who's a professor of spinal mechanics, and I think that's a great one every ski instructor should look at, because he talks about the importance of spinal health and brings it back into relation to skiing, because he's not a skier himself, but he understands the movements and what skiing would go through, and he's worked with Olympic skiing athletes and brought them back from injury to sort of medal success. So he's a very, very interesting, very knowledgeable guy, and it's an hour and a bit of really good stuff on your spine, so that would be a good one for people to check out too.
Brilliant. Okay, well I'll add links to all of this stuff so that people can get you and find you on the various.
Thank you.
I don't know where you're finding time to upload so much stuff to social media. It's crazy.
On the bus.
That's the way. All right. Cool. Well, I'll leave you to the rest of your day. I'm assuming it's a typical sunny Friday afternoon in Australia, off to the beach.
Grey, rainy.
No,
it's horrible, rainy, great. Yeah, it is. It was really nice yesterday, but no, I mean, winter's hit early in Australia. It's actually really good. I mean, there's there's 80 centimetres of snow or something already, which is a lot for
Brilliant.
Australia this time of year.
That's great.
So I think it's going to be a good winter.
All right, mate. Well, enjoy it, and thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Thanks very much, Dave.
All right, mate. No worries. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.